Welcome back. We've explored the psychology of the deal, the psychology of sales. Today, perhaps our final frontier, we're digging into the psychology of leadership. Ray, welcome back, and thank you again for co-hosting the Psychology of Business series with me. Are you ready to unpack how power, personality, and psychology collide?
Yeah, absolutely. An entire business culture is affected by how a leader leads. So we have to be very cognizant of how our own psychology interacts with that of our team members.
Well, let's start here. Do you think great leaders are born, made, or just really good at faking it?
Yeah, I like to think that anyone who puts themselves in a leadership role is not faking it. That takes a lot of guts, and it's pretty impossible to fake. Even if you're faking it till you make it, you're making it because you're doing it. So I think being a leader is one of many personality styles, and it's neither right or wrong. I don't think everyone should be striving to be a leader. And leadership has kind of been glorified, and some people need to be the integrators who bring that leader's vision to life. And so if we only had leaders, then the whole world would fall apart. So then the question becomes, is a leader-like personality a result of nature or nurture? And I'm pretty sure the jury is still out on that one.
That's right. Charisma is a huge part of that. It's huge in leadership. Do you think it's genuine influence or just emotional manipulation with better lighting?
Yeah, with better lighting. It's both. Some people are charismatic because they create envy. They create this persona that others feel like they should strive for, and that can be manipulation. And others are charismatic because they make others feel good about themselves and they help others be the best version of themselves. That's genuine influence. And if you're following a leader, it's your duty to question the kind of leader you're following and why. So be discerning about who you give your loyalty to. And if you're a leader, then it's your duty to lift others up so you're building a stronger mountain together rather than building your legacy on a self-serving or shaky ladder of stepping on others solely to serve yourself.
Yeah, and I think even charisma can be mistaken, if people think it's false charisma, can be mistaken for passion. And many founders who are leaders have such a passion for what they're doing that it can come across very charismatic, and to some may even appear to be forced. But from experience, the founders I work with are just very passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah.
If we dropped a high-powered CEO into a group therapy session, what do you think would happen?
So if that person is the self-serving type, then they would dominate the session and they would get what they need, point blame on others, and everyone would leave feeling like they needed a shower. And I've definitely been in those situations. I used to run group therapy programs. I've done couples counseling before, and you definitely sometimes have those people who are just in it to make themselves look good and then get out. But if that leader is the service-oriented, genuine leader type, then they would focus on helping their people grow during that session because they know that their castle needs to be built on a strong foundation where everyone else is taken care of in order to ensure the longevity of the entire organization.
Would love to have been a fly on the wall in some of those sessions. I'm sure they can be quite interesting. Kind of unconscious biases tend to show up in leadership settings. And how do those biases shape decision making?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's kind of this pattern that shows up with biases where we often fall prey to biases in order to avoid looking like we're wrong. And so if you ever notice that fear coming up in yourself, then one of these biases might be at play. There's the affinity bias, which is when someone favors people who are similar to themselves, whether that's in background or interest or values. And that happens because people don't like to be told that they're wrong, and they want people in the room with them who have the same opinions. Then there's confirmation bias. And this is when someone is actually seeking the information or interpreting information in ways that confirm something that they already believe or want to be true. And then there's the halo and horns effect, which is allowing one single positive or negative, so positive being the halo, negative being the horns, trait to overlay the influence that your perception of someone else has on your own opinions. And then the last one is anchoring bias. And this is relying too heavily on the first piece of information that you come across to base a decision that may not happen for months, but that's the foundation that you anchor into and build upon. We actually talked about that in our last episode.
Great. That's great information. Now I'm going to hit you up because everyone's always looking for a shortcut or a hack. So have you ever seen a leadership hack, some trendy strategy that absolutely backfires?
Yeah, there's two that come to mind. One is this idea of, I think it's been called radical candor. And this is basically when people use the concept of, oh, it's such a leadership hack, it's a great leadership model, as an excuse to just be blunt and brutally honest and tell it like it is. And don't get me wrong, I love people who are very straightforward and direct and communicative and clear, but you still have to adapt the way that you're speaking to the person that you're speaking to. You can't treat everyone the same. Otherwise, only a small portion of that room is actually going to hear the message that you have. You have to understand how your people work well. And that's why a lot of organizations do personality tests and strengths tests with their staff now to figure out the best way that people work so that everyone can be successful. Another hack that I've seen kind of pretty predominantly on LinkedIn is this idea of failing forward, or fail fast and fail often. And that's all well and good if you're a company that has budget that you are willing to set aside and able to set aside responsibly to test things out. But if you're a startup or you have a really lean budget, you can't afford to fail. So don't fall prey to the pressure of everyone saying, oh, it's great that failure is now an accepted part of the process, but we also need to know when we need to avoid failure and protect our resources in order to succeed so that you can get to the point where you have a small expendable budget to test and fail.
Yeah, good points. I know that, one of the things I learned early on in sales was to mimic back the way the person you're talking to is. So if they're mild and quiet, then that's the approach you use with them. Of course, it's a very difficult balance because you want to come across as authentic. You don't want to come across as placating them. So it's a fine line to manage. Let's switch gears a little bit here for a second and get into micromanagement. Is it rooted in fear, control, boredom, or does it go deeper than that?
Yeah, so micromanagement is typically caused by someone lacking trust in their team. And as a result of that lack of trust, they have deep fears about things not being done the way that they want or to the outcome that they want. And so they try to control every aspect. So it's a combination of fear and control. Fear is the root cause. Control is the mechanism that someone uses to combat that symptom of fear. And also sometimes those who are super detail oriented and who tend more towards micromanagement and really care about the details shouldn't lead. It's just inefficient, and leaders need to be focused on a big picture vision. And if you can't do that, then you're not using your talents to the best of your ability.
Great points. Let's, discuss something a little bit different. What happens when a leader tries too hard to be inspirational and they accidentally build a corporate cult?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're trying too hard, people are going to sense that. People will, even if they can't pinpoint what it is, everyone has kind of that BS radar. And so you're going to attract nothing but sheep if you are doing that, if you're trying too hard. And a leader should want other leaders in their own right to work with them and not just follow them blindly. That's the only way we push each other to be better. And the best way to lead is to get super clear on your values and then walk the walk. Lead by example, so to speak. So be vocal to the point that you're comfortable with. Not everyone needs to be a Gary Vee or a Tony Robbins. You can lead from a much quieter, more demure place if that suits your personality. But the point is to have integrity.
Yeah, and I'm going to double down on a word I already used today, and that's authentic. people can tell if you're being authentic. And if you lead with authenticity, you don't have to be anyone else. You just have to have passion and be convincing and walk the walk, as you said, right? So again, great points. I'm going to hit you up with a weird question, and hopefully you're ready for it. But if you had to pick one fictional character as your ideal leader, who would it be and why?
Yeah. So this might be top of mind because my husband and I just adopted 2 puppies, and we named one of them Violet. And the fictional character that comes to mind is Violet Baudelaire. So if you've ever read Lemony Snicket and you know the story of Violet and her 2 siblings, I think Simon was the brother and Sonny was, I don't know, maybe I have the brother's name wrong. Anyway, Violet is the oldest of the siblings, and she has this motto where whenever they're in a pickle, whenever they're in a jam, their car's going to be hit by a train or, whatever the case is, she always says, there's always something. There's always something. And she's an inventor. And she ties up her hair and she looks around and she gets her hands dirty and she fixes the problem. And at the same time, she knows when to tag in her brother and her little baby sister to do what they're best at. And I think that's really what a leader is. They're a problem solver, and they recognize the strengths in the other people around them. They respect and value those strengths, and they trust them, and they tag them in when they're going to be at their best.
Yeah, it's sounds counterintuitive, but to lead, you need to trust. And
Yeah,
so
very much.
best leaders trust other people and also realize their limitations and trust the abilities of others with qualities that maybe they lack and or skills that maybe they lack. And really that's the best leader and builds the strongest businesses and the strongest leadership teams as well. So really that's it for today's dive into the psychology of leadership. Ray, as always, I love chatting with you. Whether you're leading teams, projects, or just trying to lead your dog away from neighbor's trash, remember, leadership starts in the mind.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Toby.